Hello everybody, this is the iPhone channel here. Over here is the original iPhone, and as of this year, this iPhone will turn 18 years old. Yes, it would actually reach the age of majority in many countries, including the US, well, much of the US except for 3 states, as well as much of Canada and many EU nations, as well as many global nations. So why not, due to the fact this phone is actually going to turn 18, why not? I'm actually going to review it, shall we? So you cannot believe how long it was since this phone was announced, because this phone was actually announced on January the 9th of 2007. Yes, 18 years ago, nearly 18 years ago as of recording this video. But it was first released to consumers in the 4 and 8 gig variants on June the 29th of 2007. It actually came in 3 storage configurations, so the 4, the 8, the 16 gigs variants. Well, the 16 gigs actually did come later, after the 4 gig was actually discontinued, but the 16 gig variant does exist. Now this is actually the 8 gig variant. And unfortunately, just like every single iOS device, there is no ability to expand via micro SD, which is kind of unfortunate. So that means the 8 gigs of storage is quite meager, and if you want to listen to more music, you would have to buy the iPod Classic, which does have a 160 gig variant. So I have the 8 gig variant over here. Let me show you guys. So let's go to General and About. And yeah, basically 8 gigs. But in reality, many of the apps are quite small, and unfortunately the App Store no longer works. And yeah, it's, we'll say, like, cannot connect to iTunes Store. It is currently offline. But 8 years ago, when this iPhone was 10 years old, the App Store was online. Now, as for the processor, this phone does have a Samsung S5L 8900, which is actually 90 nanometers. Yes, 90 nanometers. Today's processors, as I remind you, are 3 nanometers, which show the rate of progress the size of the processor actually goes. And as you can see, this is actually single core, 600 megahertz, underclocked to about 412 megahertz, CPU with 128 megs of RAM. Yes, 128 megs of RAM. Nowadays, like, modern smartphones would have as much RAM as this phone has storage-wise. Yes, I'm not even joking. And unfortunately, most apps are dead, like Dodo, so the Messages app will be dead because there's no iMessage on this, and 2G has been disbanded in the US. Well, the Calendar app, the Photos app, the Camera app does work, but YouTube app definitely is for sure going to be gone, because it has been gone since like 2015. Yes, cannot connect to YouTube. Unfortunately, the Stocks app, I really don't believe it actually works anymore. Well, does it actually work? Let's see. In a few seconds. So why not? Let's call it as not working. And of course, the map sort of works like some bits, just like on the iPad. And offline GPS still does work, to be honest. Now, this is not accurate, as this is the current accurate directions for these 2 respective addresses. But still, this could be done for like really rudimentary navigation, definitely on offline for sure. And if you were to zoom in, of course, Google Maps is definitely going to be updated. Yes, it is still online. As you can see, Taco Bell, a brand new Taco Bell close to Back Bay in the Fenway neighborhood. But it seems like the weather app has been offline at this moment. But anyways, of course, the voice memos, notes, clock, and calculator settings does work, but the iTunes Store definitely does not work, and it did not even work 8 years ago, to be honest, when I first tested it out. Now the phone app definitely would not work unless if you're in some country that actually supports 2G, so maybe in a third world country or maybe certain European countries. And the Mail app does not work. I actually tested it out on the original iPad, which actually runs a newer iOS, but why not? Let's listen to some music, shall we? So over here is at full volume. And yeah, unfortunately, it is the full volume for this phone. Yes, the speaker is actually down here, and it's actually quite pathetic in today's standards. Now, fun fact, this phone does not support 3G, nor MMS, nor GPS support. It actually does support directions paper by paper, but there's actually no GPS on the original iPhone. In fact, the 3G was the very first iPhone with these features, and it originally did not even come with copy and paste. it was actually introduced in a later iteration of iOS. And of course, there's actually a pathetic 2 megapixel camera, which basically only takes pictures. I'll show you guys a photo sample now. Now moving on to the screen, as this is actually a 480 by 320 screen with a pixel density of about 163 pixels per inch, so online with some of the very oldest iPhones. And even though it was quite revolutionary at the time, in fact the screen is quite pathetic. This is not even IPS LCD, I don't believe so. This is actually TFT LCD, which is actually was, as you can see, with sort of horrendous viewing angles as compared with IPS LCD. And this iPhone does incorporate some modern iPhone features. The home button was sort of antiquated, but the SE3, which is sold in today's world, actually does have the home button. And guess what? There are also volume buttons as well, but the newer iPhones actually do have the action button in place of the silent ringer over here. And there's also a power button, yes, on the top rather than on the side like some of the newer iPhones. And as you can see, there's actually a recessed headphone jack as well as a SIM card as well as 30 pins. So it kind of resembles many modern iPhones, sort of, but not really that modern, but maybe reminiscent to that of the SE3. Now as for pricing, originally you could only buy the original iPhone using a 2-year contract through AT&T or Singular, and it actually costed $500 for the base 4 gigabytes of storage. Yes, $500. On a 2-year contract, which means you do have to pay like every month or something, which is absolutely insane. That was in 2007, and if you want to buy the 8 gig, it's definitely going to be $100 more. But once the 4 gig was actually phased out about like 2.5 months later, when the iPod Classic and iPod Touch were actually released, then the 8 gig variant actually dropped from around $600 to $400 on a 2-year contract. And later in 2007, the 16 gig variant actually came to fruition, and it costed $500 on a 2-year contract. And unfortunately, there's no CDMA variant, so only GSM, unfortunately, but you could actually unlock it and use it on T-Mobile. But none of these have supported 2G in a few years, and AT&T dropped support for 2G like 8 years ago. Now this phone is actually 11.6 millimeters thick, which is quite thick. But in fact, when compared to like modern iPhones, it might be slightly thicker. And actually weighs 135 grams, so quite light. And as you can see, the design, it is aluminium. There's some plastic in the bottom. But overall, it is quite premium, especially compared to many phones at a time, which many phones were actually developed with plastic in mind, both front and rear. And of course, there's actually glass screens, so definitely very premium, especially compared to other phones at the time. And there's actually intricate attention to detail, as you can see all throughout. And in fact, even though these Wi-Fi and Bluetooth standards are old, as this supports like Wi-Fi BG as well as Bluetooth 2.0, in fact, they're quite respectable at the standards of the time. And unfortunately, you cannot do any home screen wallpapers, so only lock screen wallpapers. Over here, as you can see, I do have the planet Earth, which is quite ubiquitous on the original iPhone. And it actually has a 30-pin connector, just like many Apple products at the time. And of course, with the battery, it could last around 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, if lucky enough, in medium and heavy usage, as this is actually 1400 milliamp hour battery. It is quite small, so really don't expect it to do much. In fact, I actually tested out the original iPad. Well, the video would actually come out in the next few weeks when that turns 15, and I actually found a 20% drain in 20 minutes. Unfortunately, the battery percentage indicator cannot be read here, so I do have to assume the battery, but why not? Let's load the internet for the very last time. As you can see, Google does actually work. Yes, so let's search for the iPhone. And as you can see here, the keyboard is a bit small, to be honest, but it is still usable in 2025, albeit in the fallback version. Yeah, definitely very, very fallback, to be honest. And why not? Let's search Apple to see if it works any bit. No, it can't work. Let's see Microsoft. Okay, guys, yes, it could not work at all. So, of course, Amazon. Now, Amazon actually does work and loads, but let's see if it's any good or not. It actually looks like this, yeah, to be honest, which is kind of okay for the original iPhone from like 18 years ago to actually run like with some UI, to be honest. And over here is Facebook, as you can see, some of the modern buttons, but in reality the site is still kind of a bit shitty, to be honest. And unfortunately, harvard.edu cannot load, neither would MIT, nor would Cambridge, nor would boston.gov, but in fact the iPad on 5.1.1 could actually run boston.gov quite succinctly, to be honest, even with the modern UI. So unfortunately, you cannot really do any browsing. This is more for like maybe show and tell and stuff. So the original iPhone basically kind of useless in today's world, but it could be used maybe as a camera or even toy, to be honest, or like some museum showpiece. But in reality, I would not really count this iPhone as being a serious phone or even like a MP3 player, as it only has 8 gigs of storage. So over here is definitely a retro review. And of course, innovation has gone so far. In fact, this is actually the 15 Pro Max. Not the latest iPhone, but quite similar to the 16 Pro Max. And as you can see, it's a night and day difference. So thank you guys for watching. Please keep a big thumbs up, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys soon.